Well, happy Mother's Day. So we are in the book of 1 Samuel, and we've been following along the life of David. David was a little obscure shepherd boy who killed a giant and became friends with the king's son and began to lead the army. And it seems as we go to this part of David's life, 1 Samuel chapter 19, everybody loves David. I mean, David's married the king's daughter, so Michal loves David, that's her husband. Saul, the king's son, Jonathan is best friends with David, so Jonathan loves David. The soldiers love David, he's an incredible warrior. The nation loves David, they're writing songs about him, but there's one person who doesn't love David. His name is Saul. Saul is the king. Saul is increasingly getting more and more jealous and closed off and filled with anger. And even though he has a spear in his hand, he's afraid of David who has a harp in his hand. And the reason why the man with the spear and the throne and the crown and the power is afraid of the guy with the harp is because he knows that God has left him and God's favor and anointing is on this young shepherd boy. And so Saul's trying to figure out, how do I get rid of this rival that everyone loves? So he sends him on all these dangerous missions, Mission Impossible, Ethan Hunt kind of stuff. And he's expecting David's gonna die, but David, every time he goes into this impossible situation, comes out victorious, and the people love him more. In fact, they start writing songs about him. Saul has killed his thousands, but David has killed his 10,000s. And everything David does seems to prosper. Everything Saul does to try to put him in this spot makes David's fame grow even more. And so now Saul's gonna take the gloves off. Saul's basically gonna, in this chapter, send a hit squad to kill David in his own house next to his own daughter. And that's where we pick it up, 1 Samuel chapter 19, verse 11. Saul sent men to David's house to watch it and to kill him in the morning. But Michal, David's wife, warned him, if you don't run for your life tonight, tomorrow you'll be killed. So Michal let David down through a window, and he fled and escaped. Then Michal took an idol and laid it on the bed and covered it with garments and put some goat's hair at the head. And when Saul sent the men to capture David, Michal said, he is ill. Then Saul sent men back to see David and told them, bring him up to me in the bed so that I may kill him. But when the men entered, there was the idol in the bed and the head with some goat's hair. Saul said to Michal, why did you deceive me like this and send my enemy away so that he escaped? Michal told him, he said to me, let me get away. Why should I kill you? Michal, the wife of David, is caught in this dilemma. Her dad's asking her to do something she knows is wrong, and she has a decision to make. Do I protect my husband? Do I do what's right before God? Or do I yield to this family dysfunction? And oftentimes in life, we have this choice, because not every family is perfect. Not every situation that we go through in life is ideal. And she's stuck between my dad is sort of going crazy and paranoid. He's asking me to do things that I'm not willing to do. So I'm gonna defy my father. I'm gonna save my husband. I'm gonna sneak him out the window in the middle of the night. And I'm gonna maybe risk my own life. And when her dad asks her, why did you do this? She lies to him. And what you're gonna notice is, over these next few chapters, a lot of people are gonna be telling a lot of lies. And you're like, is God condoning all these lies? Here's what we know. The Bible does not sanitize the character of each individual person in every one of these situations. No, the Bible tells what is happening, and often without commentary. And we see that happening here as we watch Jonathan and Michal and David himself trying to figure out, how do I navigate these life and death situations? So David is escaping from his house in the middle of the night. And where do you go when the king is trying to kill you? And there are eyes everywhere. He decides to go and see the one person he feels like he can trust, the prophet Samuel. Verse 18, when David fled, he made his escape, and he went to Samuel at Ramah and told him all that Saul had done to him. Then he and Samuel went to Naioth and stayed there. David's like, who do I trust? Where do I go? I know when I was a teenager, this prophet Samuel, the one the whole nation respected, walked up into my family, anointed me in front of my brothers. He's been talking to me and praying for me and mentoring me. He's the one guy I can trust. And he's the one person I can be safe with, because I know he and Saul are sort of on the outs, and I know that God speaks to him and works through him. So he he flees, he runs in the middle of the night to this trusted old advisor. But we're gonna find out that Saul finds out that David ran to Samuel, and so he sends soldiers. David's gonna realize, I'm not even safe with Samuel. And so Saul sends a hit squad or whatever it is to arrest or kill David and maybe Samuel. And now there's this moment that 1 Samuel 19 describes. Samuel's here, the prophets are behind him, they're prophesying, they're singing, they're praying, the soldiers are coming forward, maybe they have their weapons drawn, we don't really know. And all of a sudden, the Spirit of God comes in its irresistible and raw power, and these soldiers start prophesying, singing. Like, what is happening? Saul finds out, sends another group of police, another group of security officers to arrest or kill David, and the group starts prophesying the same way, and a third group the same way. So Saul pretty much figures out, if you want something done right, you have to what? Do it yourself. So he comes himself, and he's coming to get rid of his rival. This old man can't stop him. This young boy has no defense, just a school of prophets. And what happens is Saul's on the road, he starts to prophesy. And he ends up laying down on the road, takes off his clothes. He lays there naked all day long and all night long. And people are like, what is happening with Saul? The guy's going from wanting to kill someone to now prophesying what's going on. And here's all we know. When you have no defense and the people you go to can't protect you, God can still work in beautiful and unusual and miraculous ways. And this is what happens in this moment in David's life. He gets Saul in his disconnected state to speak the word of God and just lay down on the ground, buck naked, like he was born. It's like God saying, Saul, you think you have power, you think you have control, but you came into this world naked and you will return naked and helpless. And I just want you to know I am God and you are not. And this is what's happened in this moment. So now David, he doesn't know why Saul wants to kill him. He doesn't understand the demonic possession, the paranoia, the anger. David hasn't done anything wrong, but his whole life is falling apart. He's now lost his wife, he's now lost his job, he's now lost his ability to be in a relationship with Samuel. He's lost all of his money in his bank accounts, he's lost the army he used to lead, he's lost everything. And we're gonna continue to watch him lose things one after another. And so he tries to figure out in this desperate moment, where do I go? I know, I'm gonna go to my friend Jonathan. Even though he's the son of the king, even though he's the king in waiting, even though I'm his rival, I'm a threat to him, he's the one I can trust because I've made a covenant with him. And so in chapter 20, verse 1, David runs to Jonathan. Then David fled from Naioth to Ramah and went to Jonathan and asked, what have I done? What is my crime? How have I wronged you, Father, that he is trying to kill me? And never, Jonathan replied, you're not gonna die. Look, my father doesn't do anything, great or small, without letting me know. Why would he hide this from me? It isn't so. But David took an oath and said, your father knows very well that I have found favor in your eyes. And he has said to himself, Jonathan must not know this, or he will be grieved. Yet as surely as the Lord lives, and as you live, there is only a step between me and death. Jonathan said to David, whatever you want me to do, I'll do for you. Those are reassuring words in a moment of crisis, like a friend looks at another friend who's desperate, who's confused, who doesn't know who's safe, doesn't know who to trust, and he says, whatever you want me to do, I will do it for you. You can hear the desperation in David's voice. He's like, there's only a step between me and death. I snuck out of the house at the last second in the middle of the night. They just missed me. Saul sent 3 battalions of soldiers to kill me. I just escaped. And now I'm with you, and I still don't know for the life of me why your dad is so intent on killing me. Now here's the thing. Saul is thinking that his son and his daughter are gonna help him keep control, but the irony is that his daughter helps his escape, and Saul's own son is gonna be the spy, negotiator, and mediator, helping David every step along the way. And this is God's favor over David's life. And so David is sure Saul wants to kill him. Jonathan thinks, well, he's just in one of those moods, so let's propose a test. You're supposed to come, David, to sit at the king's table at the festival that's coming up in a week, and so here's what I propose. You miss the feast, and let's see how he responds. If he's not upset about the fact that you're missing, then great. He's not really mad. you'll come back to the kingdom and everything's gonna be fine. But if he freaks out when you're missing, then we're gonna know that your life is still in danger. And so because we can't text back and forth and I can't let you know what's happening in real time, we're gonna plan a meeting for the day after that feast. And you're gonna sit by this rock, and I'm gonna come out with my bow and arrow, and I'm gonna shoot arrows. And if I shoot the arrows short of the rock, then you're gonna know you're safe. But if I shoot the arrows beyond the rock, then you're gonna know my dad is intent to kill you. And so they create the plan. They create the way they're gonna have the signal back and forth so they can know, because they have no idea who's watching them and who is safe. And then, as they talk about this plan, well, David says this in verse 8. As for you, speaking to Jonathan, show kindness to your servant, for you have brought him into a covenant with you before the Lord. If I'm guilty, then kill me yourself. Why hand me over to your father? Never, Jonathan said, if I had the least inkling that my father was determined to harm you, wouldn't I tell you? What does David do? David says, please show me kindness, faithful, loyal love, because we have made a covenant together. So whatever you do, I want you to treat me honestly and fairly and with this unconditional love. Jonathan responds in verse 13, but if my father intends to harm you, may the Lord deal with Jonathan, be it ever so severely, if I do not let you know and send you away in peace. May the Lord be with you as he's been with my father, but show me unfailing kindness, like the Lord's kindness as long as I live, so that I may not be killed. And do not ever cut off your kindness from my family, not even when the Lord has cut off every one of David's enemies from the face of the earth. So Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, may the Lord call David's enemies to account. And Jonathan had David reaffirm his oath out of love for him, because he loved him as he loved himself. What's happening here? These two men are talking about a covenant that they've made with each other before God. Now, how is a covenant different than a contract? How is a covenant different than a promise? Well, when you promise someone it's just the two of you, or you shake hands and make an agreement, well, God may have nothing to do with that. But a covenant is when you look at each other and you say, we agree as God is our witness. We promise to each other and we promise to God, we will keep this promise and we will never break it. And it's because of this covenant that they use this word called kindness. Now, if you look at verse 8, you see this phrase. David says to Jonathan, I appeal to you, show me kindness. If you look at verse 14, Jonathan appeals to David, because of his covenant, show me unfailing kindness. Now, I want to give you the Hebrew word for this word kindness, because kindness is not just be nice to me or be nice to my descendants. No, it's a totally different type of word. It's the Hebrew word hesed. Everyone say hesed. Or if you're Hebrew, you can say chesed and apologize for spitting on your neighbor. Listen. What is this word hesed? It's used over 250 times in the Old Testament. It's one of the most important theological words in the entire Bible. And it has one of the largest ranges of meaning of any word in any language anywhere in the history of the world. This word hesed is translated, sometimes it's translated love, sometimes it's translated mercy, sometimes it's translated kindness. In the old King James Bible, they made up a word to describe this word hesed, loving kindness. In your Bibles, you'll see it translated steadfast love, unfailing love, covenant love, loyal love. The best way to describe this type of mercy and kindness and love is the type of love that never gives up. The type of love that no matter what happens, you can depend on. No matter what happens, you can find safety there. And this is the word that God uses to describe his love for his people. Where we see God first use this word to describe himself, it's in the book of Exodus. It's chapter 34. And Moses, he's having a challenging time leading the children of Israel, and he's up on the mountain and he says, God, I don't want to take these people without you. I don't want to go anywhere without you. In fact, God, I've gotten to know you so well. We talk face to face like a man talks to his friend. I want to see your glory. And God says to Moses, if you see my glory, you're going to die. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put you in the cleft of the rock of the mountain. I'm gonna cover you with my hand. I'm gonna pass by you, and you're gonna see the residue of my glory. And just the residue of God's glory made Moses' face shine so brightly, people couldn't look at his face. But maybe you don't know what God said to Moses when he passed by him. God gives Moses this self-disclosure. Moses, I want to have an intimate relationship with you. I want you to know me. So I'm gonna describe myself to you as I pass by. And here is how God describes himself to Moses. Exodus 34, 6 and 7. He says, Yahweh, Yahweh, the Lord, the compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in hesed and faithfulness, maintaining hesed to thousands, and forgiving wickedness, rebellion, and sin. Hey, Moses, do you want to know what I'm like? I am Yahweh. I am who I am. I am the God who was and is to come. I do not change. Something about the name Yahweh, the name Jehovah, the God who is, I am. And then he says, and I'm compassionate. I'm slow to anger, and I am full of hesed. I'm full of unfailing, steadfast, loyal love. No matter what you do or what your people do, I will always be the same God. I will never leave you, and I will never forsake you. This is a love you can trust. Not only am I full of that love, but I maintain that love for thousands and for thousands of generations. So as long as God is God, he's gonna be faithful even when you're not. He's gonna be a safe place to come in the middle of your confusion and chaos and brokenness, in the middle of your sin, in the middle of your victories, in the middle of your defeats. God's always going to be there and always gonna be ready to be full of faithful, loving mercy and kindness. And this is what David pledges to Jonathan, and this is what Jonathan pledges to David. The God we serve is a God of faithfulness. And so if you want to go to a safe place in a time of trouble, you go to God. He is the God of hesed. And this sounds to me a lot like the love of a mom. You think about what moms are and how kids come to them in certain moments. You think about the sacrifices that moms make and often don't get a thank you. I mean, I don't know if you know this or not, but before you were born, you were in your mother's womb, and your birth affected your mom in lots of ways, right? Anybody know that, pregnancy affects the woman's body, and childbirth is more than just a little bit painful? I mean, if guys had to give birth to kids, there would be very few people on this planet. I don't know if you know that or not. But think about your mom before you were born and all the sacrifices as she carried you and as God formed you in her womb. Think about those moments where she didn't just sacrifice her own body and her own sleep and her own comfort, but all those times that she read you stories at night and told you about who you were, and maybe she prayed for you if you had a Christian mom, and she spoke into your life, and not just then, but when you were sick and when you needed some chicken soup and you needed some hugs and kisses and you needed some reassurance, and there was this faithfulness about your mom who was there. And even in these moments where you went through difficult moments and there was tension and she didn't always say the perfect thing, these moments of tension, and you're like, oh, that was it. My mom and I got in a fight and she's never gonna talk to me again. And then you realize when you graduate, she's the one cheering the loudest and screaming the most, because no matter what you do, there's something about the love of a mom that doesn't give up. I've worked a lot with young men in prison. And when they do the stupid things that they do and they end up in prison, and I'll ask them, so like, who calls you, who writes you? Oh, none of my friends. My friends that say, hey bro, I'm with you all the time, I'll be there all the time, they're long gone. And my brother and sister don't call me anymore, my dad doesn't call me anymore, but 99% of the time, they'll say, my mom still calls. My mom still shows up on business. My mom still writes me letters. My mom is the only one who hasn't given up on me. Now, that's not everyone's experience, but that's most people's experience. There's something about the love of a mom that God reveals this hesed, loyal love. And so can we just thank our moms one more time for demonstrating that for us? It's a powerful, powerful, beautiful thing. And so David and Jonathan, they make this covenant. They appeal to the promise they made before God, that God was their witness. And David says, please treat me with this faithful love no matter what your dad does. And Jonathan said, and David, please treat me with faithful love when you become king. Please treat my descendants with his faithful love because God is gonna be opposed to your enemies. And he knows that's his dad and his family. And so show this to me. And so they had proposed a test that David was gonna miss this feast that was gonna happen, and they were gonna gauge Saul's response. So Jonathan goes to the meal and David's seat is empty. Saul doesn't say a word. Second day of the feast, his seat is still empty, and Saul says to Jonathan, where's David? Jonathan says, oh, he had to go to Bethlehem to sacrifice with his family for a festival, and Saul freaks out. Verse 30, here's what happens in the middle of this dinner. Saul's anger flared up at Jonathan, and he said to him, you son of a perverse and rebellious woman. Woo, happy Mother's Day. Don't I know that you have sided with the son of Jesse to your own shame and to the shame of the mother who bore you? As long as the son of Jesse lives on this earth, neither you nor your kingdom will be established. Now send someone to bring him to me, for he must die. Why should he be put to death? What has he done? Jonathan asked his father. But Saul hurled his spear at him to kill him. Then Jonathan knew that his father intended to kill David. And Jonathan got up from the table in fierce anger. And on the second day of the feast, he did not eat because he was grieved at his father's shameful treatment of David. This is one of those moments, right? They're trying to propose a test. Saul freaks out and insults Jonathan's own mom. I hope she was not at that dinner. That would have been a rough night for Saul. But it was one of those things where Saul just can't contain his rage. He doesn't understand this irrational loyalty that Jonathan has with David. He's like, don't you understand? As long as he's alive, you will never be king. The only way to solve this problem is to kill him so you can establish your kingdom, because this is the message of the world. It's about you. It's about your kingdom. It's about preserving your rights. And if you have to eliminate some threats and do some things that might be slightly unethical, you'll get over it. Jonathan, as long as David is alive, you're not gonna be the king. And then Jonathan's response is remarkable because there's this tremendous amount of pressure on him. He is the oldest son of the king. He's supposed to be the next king, and he's brave, and he's loyal, and he's spiritually mature and wise. But there's this power struggle. Maybe in his own mind, maybe everyone's watching going, well, yeah, why not just do it? Because the culture is saying, take the kingdom. It's yours, it's your right. It's about you and your kingdom. You do what's right. But he's made this promise to his friend. He's made this promise to God. And though the world says that culture is more important than covenant, Jonathan reverses that. He flips the script. He says, no, my covenant with God and my covenant with my friend is more important than what the culture demands I do. It's not about my kingdom, it's about his kingdom. And this is a powerful moment that reminds us that life is not about what you achieve primarily. Life is about how you keep your promises to God and to the people that are closest around you. You see, the idea of covenant has sort of lost its power and authority in our lives. That when we see these moments in a wedding where you say, I commit not just to this woman I'm about to marry or this man I'm about to marry, and I'm just commit to them in front of all these witnesses. I commit to God for better or for worse, for richer or for poor, in sickness and in health, till death do us part. That covenant is not just a covenant for the pastor at the front or the spouse or the family. That's a covenant before God. It means something. It should mean something. And so we as Christians, we have to look at these covenants that God has made with us and that we've made with other people and say there has to be a weight to this. In Jonathan, there's clearly a weight in his life. And Saul just gets so upset, he throws a spear at his own son. This is how irrational Saul has gotten. And so Jonathan knows, I gotta go tell David. And so their prearranged signal was to go out after this feast day, and he's gonna go out with his archer, his bow and arrow, and his little boy to fetch the arrows, and he shoots the arrows long, which means it's not safe to come back. And then he says to the little boy, hey, I think I shot beyond the rock. Go take the arrows, fetch them, and go back to the palace. I'll meet you back there. And it's at this moment that David steps from behind the rock and has one of the last conversations that he's ever gonna have with his best friend, Jonathan. Verse 41. After the boy had gone, David got up from the south side of the stone and bowed down before Jonathan 3 times, with his face to the ground. Then they kissed each other and wept together, but David wept the most. And Jonathan said to David, "Go in peace, for we have sworn friendship to each other in the name of the Lord, saying, 'The Lord is witness between you and me, between your descendants and my descendants forever.' Then David left, and Jonathan went back to the town." This moment, friends that are closer than brothers. Friends that all the outside circumstance would say they should never be friends, they should break off this friendship, but they made a promise to each other and to God that they would be loyal to each other forever, no matter what happened. 𝘾𝙊𝙉𝙍, this loving kindness, this loyal, faithful love of God demonstrated between 2 people. And Jonathan cried because he knew this was gonna be maybe one of their last conversations, but maybe there was hope they would meet again. David cries because he knows it's never gonna be the same. You see, for the next 10 years, and David doesn't know this yet, neither does Jonathan. For the next 10 years, David is gonna be running for his life. He's gonna be hiding in caves. He's gonna be going to enemy territory. He's gonna find himself compromising his trust in God to do some crazy things. He's gonna lose in the next couple of days everything else he's had. You see, he's had a wife, he's had a position, he's had a house, he's had money, he's had soldiers, he had a friend, he's had access to the prophet, and even these things he's gonna slowly lose over the next couple of days until he becomes a fugitive, surviving by his wits just to stay alive. Jonathan's gonna go back to the palace and serve under his father Saul, continuing to fight the Philistines, and this is one of their last moments. I think David cries because he knows it's never gonna be the same again. This is one of those sad farewells in the Bible. And sometimes people will look at this and go, wow, they love each other as much as they love themselves, and they're kissing in this moment. Is there something going on here? Like, sometimes we can take our frame of 2025 and maybe think about, is this a sexualized relationship? And I just wanna say that if you do that, you're not reading the Bible as it was written during this time. Because in Middle Eastern culture, when men kiss each other, it's a sign of friendship, it's a sign of covenant, it's a sign of loyalty, that I would die for you. And some people want to take that and sort of twist it and say, well, maybe that was something else. No, 𝘾𝑗𝑠𝑖𝑑 love is not a sexual love. It's a faithful love because of the character of the heart and the friendship and connection before God. And so let's not let the scripture be twisted by this modern cultural framework and make it something that it's not. This is the picture of the faithful love between 2 friends that God has placed together. And so this moment, this promise, David says, Jonathan, any of your descendants, your sons, your grandsons, and great-grandsons, I will be faithful. I will never give up. Jonathan makes the same promise. That promise is going to be fulfilled in a couple of years from now. I'm not going to give it away, but as you read ahead, you'll find out how this moment actually changes the life of one of Jonathan's sons. And that's more to come. But let's talk for a moment about how do we think about this now as New Testament Christians, this story of great friendship, this story of covenant friendship and faithful love committed to one another. And so here's the first thing I want you to think about. That God's covenant love surrounds your life. This isn't just a story about David back then, it's a story about you right now, that if you are a Christian, if you are in Christ, God's covenant love is above you. God's covenant love is below you, it's behind you, and it's in front of you, surrounding your life. David was the anointed, chosen king of God. No matter where he went, God was protecting him, even though he felt like he was only one step away from death. And for those of us who are in Christ, well, Jesus promises us this in John chapter 10. He says, I am the good shepherd, and my sheep, they know my voice, they hear my voice. And I'm the gate. If the sheep come through me, they can be saved. And not even the enemy can snatch them or you out of my hand. Think about this powerful promise. Nothing can get to you except it goes to the hand of God himself. This isn't just something we see in David's life, but it's something that's promised to us for those of us who have a relationship with Jesus. Now, David writes a lot about having God be his good shepherd. Maybe something you didn't notice in Psalm 23. He says, God, he is my good shepherd. He leads me beside still waters. He leads me by green pastures. He restores my soul. He makes me this feast in the presence of my enemies. And I'm going to dwell in the house of the Lord forever. But there's a particular line toward the end of the Psalm where David recognizes the covenant love, the hesed love of God. He says this, surely your goodness and love, hesed, will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. David has this experience, and he articulates in the song, like, as I've walked through my life, I realize God isn't just ahead of me, but his faithful love is trailing behind me, and he's gonna bring me to the desired destination. And this is a confidence that David has that we can have for ourselves and for our kids. I said earlier that some kids are harder to raise than others. I was hard to raise. And if you're hard to raise, sometimes God gives you a kid who's hard to raise. And God gave you one of those kids, maybe two. And there was a moment one of our particular sons was going through a difficult time in middle school because God, you know how hard middle school can be. And I don't know who I am, and I'm struggling in school and struggling with friends and struggling with authority and doing stupid things and being impulsive and then getting stubborn and doubling down and not moving. I was raised in a family, you talk back, you're gonna do push-ups and write apology letters, and you're gonna pull weeds, and you're gonna run laps. You're gonna do what you're gonna do because the will of a child is strong and needs to be shaped, but the soul of a child is sensitive. It needs to be loved and nurtured. And well, this one particular son of ours in middle school, he had done something dumb in school and refused to apologize and refused to do the consequences. And I looked at him and said, you're gonna run 2 laps around this block. You're gonna run a half mile, and then we're gonna have a conversation before I bring you to school or take you to practice or do anything. And he did that like, okay, I'm patient. All night long, he chose not to do those things. He just sat in his room, and then it was 6:30 in the morning. I rang the alarm. I said, step outside. Even though it's dark, we're gonna run these laps. You have a consequence, and we're gonna get this done. And so he starts walking and then starts running at 6:30 in the morning, and now he's just upset, just, lights are flipping on the neighborhood. Everyone's going, what's going on? I'm walking behind him, running behind him, and he's flailing and screaming, and he's like angry, tired, sad, rebellious, broken. And I'm like, I'm gonna kill this kid. And you ever been moments you're like, your last shred of patience is gone, all the things. I'm like, and as I'm frustrated and watching him, like this moment of compassion sort of came over me. I'm like, I wish he knew how much I loved him. 6:30 in the morning, I'm running behind him in the dark to make sure he's safe, to make sure he can learn his lesson and make sure all these things. And the whole neighborhood knows about this now, so now we're all embarrassed, and I'm feeling like a failure as a parent, and all these things are happening. And it was like God in this moment, as I'm running behind my son, trying to wish that he understood how much I loved him, God whispers to me, Doug, I'm running behind you as you're running behind him. And you feel like you're at your wit's end, and you feel like a failure, and you feel like your prayers aren't working, and that he's never gonna turn out. But just know, my hesed, my faithful love is running behind you as well, because I know you need help, and I know you need wisdom and patience and grace. And as long as I live, I'll never forget that run. As long as I live, I'll never forget that moment. All of us need to know that the faithful love of God is surrounding our life. It's over us, it's under us, it's ahead of us, and it's trailing behind us. And that's good news in a world that's broken in so many ways. God's faithful covenant love is surrounding your life. Second big idea, God's covenant love overpowers fear, because in these moments where things are going wrong and you're confused and you don't know what to do, your mind can start to mess with you. All the disappointments, all the failures, all the what ifs. And you can lay down at bed at night, and I was like, well, what if I did this, or what if I did that, or I should have done this, or I could have done that, and what if this person finds out this, and what if this happens? And your brain just starts ruminating. Anybody? Just me? Anybody? Okay, a couple honest people. Okay, that's good. Listen, this is often what moms do, is like, I so want the best for my kids, and I can't control any of these things, and I don't know what to think or feel. And David knows a lot about what it was like to be in this place. Psalm 23, Psalm 27. You see so many of these Psalms, David says, I'm surrounded. I'm being attacked, I'm being slandered, I got nowhere to go, I'm trapped, I'm stuck. I feel like I'm vulnerable and helpless. I don't know what else to do. And out of that sense of desperation, he would write these songs. And Psalm 27 is one of these songs. He writes this: "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid?" He's talking to his soul. He's saying, God, you're the God of Hesed. You're the God of faithful love. You're never gonna give up on me. And in my worst moment, you give me shadow to hide in the shelter of your wing. And in my worst moment, you put my feet on a rock. And you promise that I will experience your goodness in the land of the living. I'm not gonna have to wait till I die and go to heaven to experience goodness. There's goodness in this life right now. And that makes fear just evaporate in these moments. Remember, God has you in his mighty right hand. No one, nothing can get to you without going through him first. And when you know this in the deepest part of your heart, fear can evaporate. Isaiah 54, no weapon formed against us will prosper. Who says that? God says that because he is your defender. That's who he is. And that's why our fear can evaporate in these moments. We also know this: God's covenant love will outlast any human love. You know, the reality is that some of you might have had amazing moms, and those moms have passed away. And there's this sense of loss and loneliness, the first Mother's Day without mom. And you wonder, like, I know that God's love lasts, but she was the one who loved me and understood me, and now I feel alone. Or maybe you had a really good friend, a friend like a Jonathan and a David, and they passed away. Or maybe the relationship broke up and you're like, I still am so confused about why that relationship broke up. Maybe as you watch these Mother's Day talks and see the pictures, you're like, I didn't have a mom like that at all. My mom, she abandoned me at birth. My mom has never spoken to my life. She had her own addiction. She had her own brokenness. Even if that's true, Psalm 27, David writes this: even though father and mother forsake me, the Lord will receive me. This is such a powerful and important truth for those of you who are in this moment. Whether intentionally or through sickness and death, you're left alone. God says, I will never leave you alone. You may feel lonely, but you're not alone. And there's a difference between feeling lonely and being alone. For those of you who've lost a loved one, 2 Corinthians 1, Paul says, suffering is gonna flow into our lives. But as suffering flows into our life, God, who's the Father of compassion, he allows the comfort of Christ to flow into our heart, into our life, to take that void and fill it with his love and his presence and his grace. So no matter how lonely you feel, you are not alone. I want you to say this after me. Say this: I am not alone. Say it again. I am not alone. And as you say that, and as you look at the scripture, you realize you aren't alone. And this is the power of Hesed, the God who will never give up on you. And moms, I wanna say this, that as you teach your kids, as you read them stories, as you talk to them as teenagers, as you help them understand who God is, that before they were born, God knit them together in their mother's womb, and how he has a plan for them, and how every part of their life has been written in God's book before one of them came to be. As you speak God's faithful presence that's been in your life into their life, it's more important they remember not that you were a good mom, but that he is a good God. In other words, you're not gonna be there for them at every step along the way. You're not gonna be for them in the middle school when the bully shows up. You're not gonna be there in high school when someone says, hey, get in the car and they've been drinking. You're not gonna be there when these moments happen, and you don't want them to always say, what would mama think? But what would God think? God is watching me right now. His presence, his power, I wanna please him. And so never discount the stories you tell that point to Jesus, because the greatest compliment your kids could ever give you is, my mom, she always pointed me to Jesus. Finally, God's covenant love invites a response. You see, God's covenant love can't demand a response because love cannot be demanded. Love cannot be coerced. You know, some of the moms have this special power. It's called mom guilt. You push it out there, but mom guilt can't make love reciprocate. But when you serve and you care and you love and you just open yourselves up, then that can be responded to. And this is what we see in the gospel. God does not demand your love. God does not demand your obedience. He invites it. What do I mean? I mean, Romans chapter 5, verse 8 says something powerful, that God demonstrates his love for you and for me, that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. So think with me for a second. Think about your life before Jesus. Here was Doug before Jesus. I do what I want. I follow my urges. I lie to the people closest to me. My relationships can come and go. It's about how much money I have and the car I drive and how popular I am at the parties and how well I do in sports. And it's all about me. And while I'm not thinking about God or caring about God, while I'm mocking people who are Christians and doing all that stuff, Christ is dying for me. And he's saying, Father, forgive Doug. He doesn't know what he's doing. But one day he's going to come to an end of himself and he's going to see me for the first time. This is the patient love of God. He initiates the covenant. He goes first when we don't think about him or care about him. And so our response is invited. For a God who would die in my place, who would die for me. If he would do all that for me, there's nothing I would withhold from him. God, for everything you've done for me, I give my life to you. This is the response that Hesed love invites for every Christian. John would write it this way. He would say, see what great love the Father has lavished on us that we should be called the children of God, and that is what we are. The extravagant love of God. So that what Jesus would say to his followers, as you have been forgiven by God, now you can forgive others. As you have received mercy of God, you show mercy to others. Your life is changed by this love that never gives up on you. Thanks for listening to today's message. You know, here at Calvary, we believe a relationship with Jesus changes everything. And if you've decided to follow Jesus, we'd love for you to text the word BELIEVE to 31352 so you can find out what it means to follow Christ. And to learn more about Calvary and all of our campuses, you're free to visit 𝘾𝘼𝙉𝙍𝙍𝑔.org.